Hello, everyone. It's Michael Shermer. It's time for another solo episode of The Michael Shermer Show. This one is on UFOs and UAPs. The reason for this is because last week, the highly respected New York publishing house, William Morrow, released ufologist Luis Elizondo's new book titled Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. Here it is. Here's the audio edition. I haven't received my copy from the publicist yet of the hard copy. Hoping Lou comes on the show. Very unlikely he will, although his publicist is trying, because I see he's canceled me on X, or blocked me on X. Anyway, it's subtitled Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. And the reading line beneath his name says, former head of the Department of Defense's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That's ATIP. Okay, remember that. We're going to come back to that because the Department of Defense has a rather different story about that. And supposedly they vetted this book before it was being published. So anyway, we'll come back to that. Okay, imminent. Just look it up. It means it's about to happen. What's about to happen? Disclosure of aliens. Okay. Imminent immediately shot to the top 10 best-selling books on Amazon as Elizondo made the rounds in numerous media interviews that, for the most part, uncritically accepted his claims that he is now revealing for the first time, in his words, quote, the truth about the government's long, shadowy involvement in UAP investigations and the lengths officials will take to keep it a secret. Here is Elizondo from the book. Quote, unidentified craft that seem to defy our knowledge of physics within air, water, and space have been operating with complete impunity since at least World War II. The military, the CIA, and even past presidents have known the truth that humanity is, in fact, not the only intelligent life in the universe. The non-human intelligence controlling these UAPs are actively conducting surveillance on our most sensitive military installations and have interfered with ongoing military and nuclear operations. U.S. service members and intelligence officers who have encountered UAPs have sustained serious medical injuries. And all of this is happening worldwide. Close quote from Elizondo's Imminent. Again, here it is. Give it a plug. Go ahead and read it. It's an intriguing book. Elizondo also told News Nation, which has emerged as really the go-to UFO media source, now that Tucker Carlson is no longer at Fox News. He used to cover the UAP stories. Quote from Elizondo, the United States has been involved in the recovery of objects, vehicles of unknown origin, that are neither from our country nor any other foreign country that we're aware of. We are not alone in this universe, and it is a simple fact. The U.S. government has been aware of that fact for decades. Close quote. Okay, let that sink in for a moment. There is general agreement among scientists, philosophers, scholars, and pretty much everybody that the discovery of an extraterrestrial intelligence would constitute one of the greatest discoveries, not just in the history of science, but in all human history. And to think that not only are they out there, that they've actually come here to Earth. And an even more startling, indeed disturbing assertion is that our own military, intelligence agencies, and even multiple presidents of the United States know all about this apparently ongoing contact and have purposely lied to us all. Do you believe it? I don't. All of this is also going to come as quite the surprise to the thousands of scientists who work in fields directly or indirectly searching for life elsewhere in the cosmos. These include the SETI scientists listening for radio signals from extraterrestrial intelligences who might be broadcasting on a channel we can detect. What about the planetary scientists searching for biosignatures in the atmospheres of exoplanets? Astronomers working to detect technosignatures like Dyson spheres. Dyson spheres are these giant solar collectors that have been proposed could be surrounding exoplanets, and maybe we can detect their heat signature, which would indicate somebody built them. Even the Galileo Project scientists setting up portable observatories around the world to produce high-resolution data of so-called unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. I'm on the Galileo Project team, and I've developed a close and respectful relationship with its director, Avi Loeb, who, when it comes to such breathtaking claims as those made by Elizondo, I think is as skeptical as I am, even while being more optimistic than I am about the possibility of discovering evidence in the form of debris from a crashed alien technology on the bottom of Earth's oceans. As you know, Avi went there last summer. He's going to go there again, I think, in the coming year to keep searching. Well, good for him. But that's not what's being claimed here. Elizondo is claiming that they are here. And by the way, this is also going to come as a surprise to the United States Department of Defense, which has thoroughly denied Elizondo's claim. Here's what DoD spokesperson Sue Gao, Gough, told News Nation. Quote, "The department is fully committed to openness and accountability to Congress and the American people, which it must balance with its obligation to protect sensitive information, sources, and methods. To date, we have not found any credible evidence of extraterrestrial activity. To date, AARO, A-A-R-O, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession of reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently." Close quote. Okay? The government is disclosing that they have no such evidence at all. As for Elizondo's claims about his involvement in the investigation of UFOs, Sue Gao also told News Nation that Elizondo, quote, "had no assigned responsibilities for the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, while assigned to the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security." Okay, again, here it is. It's right there on the book cover. Just beneath his name, it says, "Former head of the Department of Defense's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program." Okay? Not good. So even Elizondo's credentials to speak for the U.S. government on UAP matters is questionable. It wouldn't be the first time that the matter of credentials came up in UFO circles. The most famous example of such is that of Bob Lazar, who claims to have worked at Area 51 and to have personally seen and even helped back engineer an alien spaceship. He also claims to have earned 2 master's degrees, one in physics from MIT and the other in engineering from Caltech. Wow, okay. Is it true? Apparently not. Skeptical of these assertions, ufologist Stan Friedman, who actually earned a master's in nuclear physics from the University of Chicago, contacted both MIT and Caltech, who told him they have no record whatsoever of Bob Lazar even attending classes at those august institutions, much less earning graduate degrees. All right, what's Lazar's explanation for this lacuna? They went into the records of both MIT and Caltech and erased Lazar's academic record there. Who's the they? Well, we're not told, though. Presumably they were men wearing black. Further, as Friedman notes, when pressed for the names of any professors Lazar had at MIT or Caltech who could be contacted for verification that Lazar took their classes, none could be recalled. How about fellow students who were in those physics and engineering classes? Crickets. As someone who's earned both a master's degree in experimental psychology and a PhD in the history of science, I could regale you for hours with stories about my professors, the classes I took, my fellow students, and the like. In fact, what Stan Friedman found when he went digging around was that Bob Lazar actually attended Pierce Junior College in Los Angeles the same time while he was supposedly attending MIT. So Lazar is a fabulist, a fake, a fraud. In any other field, such academic misconduct alone would torpedo any additional claims about anything. Imagine someone claiming to have discovered the cure for all cancers and that they earned an MD from Harvard Medical School, only to be exposed that they had in fact faked their degree. Would anyone take anything they said seriously? But when it comes to UFOs, the stories, gosh, they're so compelling that, like religion, they are accepted without a trace of skepticism by far too many people. This all reminds me of the most famous alien abduction case on record, that of Travis Walton on November 5th, 1975, in Arizona, which was made into a major motion picture called Fire in the Sky. Here's the book. I have a copy of it. It is a ripping good story, of course. He is a lumberjack working in the forests of northern Arizona when he disappeared, or at least that's what he said happened. Anyway, he disappeared to the point where his fellow lumberjacks didn't see him for a while, and then he reappeared with this fantastic story. I was in this alien spaceship. There's no pictures, of course, in his book, but there are illustrations. Look, I've met Travis. He seems like a really nice guy. He came to my office. We've appeared on TV shows together. In fact, in 2008, we were on a show called The Moment of Truth. The show involved a lie detector test given to claimants who agreed to appear on the show who had fantastic stories that not everyone believed. This included possibly cheating spouses, which turned the show into something of a Jerry Springer-like series. Anyway, apparently Walton was so confident in his belief that he really was abducted by aliens, he must have thought that his body would not betray him. Unfortunately for him, while recounting his alien abduction experience, he failed the polygraph test, which, by the way, we've also debunked. It's not a good lie detector test. But in any case, years later, I received an email from one Kelly Waldrop, who grew up with Travis Walton, and confirmed that Travis simply made up his abduction story. Here's the quote from his letter to me. I happened across your assessment of Travis Walton's alleged abduction aboard a UFO in 1975. Your suspicion that it was a hoax is completely correct. Travis and I were in junior high together back in the early 60s, and he was constantly dreaming up schemes to deceive folks that a UFO was visiting our little town in northern Arizona. Not having seen him for decades, I actually reminded him of that in 2006 via email, and he simply changed the subject, not wanting to crack his golden egg, I suppose. I did find his online bio rather telling as well. We were in the same grade in school, and presumably the same age. I noticed that his bio lists him as having been born 5 years after me. That would have put him in first grade while I was in sixth grade. My guess is that this little chronological slippage is telling. Okay, it's good to remember that sometimes people just make things up. They do. Now, I don't know Luis Elizondo. It appears he really did work for the U.S. government in some capacity, and he was involved at some level in the study of UAPs. And I don't get the impression that he's a fabulist on the level of a Bob Lazar or Travis Walton. I was on a podcast with him a couple years ago, his podcast, but he never released that episode. And as I mentioned earlier, he's blocked me on X, so I'm guessing he's not coming on the show to talk to me about any of this, which is too bad. Because, I've had all these people on, all the UFO authors on the show, and they like coming on. They believe it. All right, let me pull back and put some of this into perspective, why I'm skeptical. I've been studying this subject for the last half century since I got interested in it through Carl Sagan's writings in the 1970s. Here's Carl's book, The Cosmic Connection, an Extraterrestrial Perspective. That the general claim of disclosure that alien contact is imminent is one I've been hearing this for half a century. And scientists like Sagan had been hearing it since the 1940s. So here are just a few of the hundreds of books I have in the Skeptic Society library here. I'm right in my office, right over there, 2 huge bookshelves full of those things. Let me just share a few of these with you. Bear with me. It's rather amusing, just so you get the impression why I am not overwhelmed by this claim of imminent disclosure. I'll just go through them here. Here's one from the 1950s, Aboard a Flying Saucer, Truman Bethune. This happened in 1947. He went aboard a UFO. Wow, okay. Here is Flying Saucer Occupants with Alien Creatures. The startling facts about the alien beings who man the flying saucers. This is Frank Salisbury and Jim Lorenzen. Okay. Of course, there's the famous Bud Hopkins Intruders. There's the Intruders book. The Incredible Visitation at Copley Woods, the astonishing story that shocked America. George Adamski's, this is a famous book called Inside the Spaceships, with a foreword by Desmond Leslie. Authors of Flying Saucers have landed. Okay. Here is Flying Saucers from Outer Space by Donald Kehoe, who plays a major role as somebody who was involved in the scientific search for UFOs. Here's Philip Corso's famous book about Roswell called The Day After Roswell, Colonel Philip Corso. Subtitled here, A Former Pentagon Official Reveals the U.S. Government's Shocking UFO Cover-Up. Does that sound familiar? Let's double check when this was published. 1997. Okay, so here we go. And there's the Andreessen Affair. All right. Subtitled, The Documented Investigation of a Woman's Abduction Aboard a UFO. And of course, John Mack's famous book, Abduction, in which this Harvard psychiatrist, who won the Pulitzer Prize, not for this book, for a different biography of T.H. Lawrence, about his taking the stories from these abductees seriously. Of course, there's Whitley Strieber's Communion. This book, by the way, that book cover really put on the map that image of what the aliens are supposed to look like. It was after this book was published that most of the alien abduction accounts described the aliens as looking like this. Before that, they had a much more varied, let's say, biology. This book was 1987. I met Whitley Strieber in the green room of Bill Maher's former show, Politically Incorrect. And I think he had a second book that had just come out. And anyway, I asked him, well, when you're not writing about, alien abductions, what do you do? And he said, well, I write science fiction and fantasy. I went, oh, okay. In other words, I just make stuff up. Yeah, okay, fine. Just be honest about it. Oh, all right. Stephen Greer has been on the radar for the last 25 years. Disclosure is his big project. Disclosureproject.org is his website if you want to look it up. Contact, Countdown to Transformation. All right, 1992. He's been talking about disclosures coming any moment now. Yep, we're still waiting. Major Donald Kehoe, again, another one of his books, Aliens from Space, the real story about unidentified flying objects. We Are Not Alone. Why we have already found extraterrestrial life. It's a done deal. And of course, can't go far without mentioning the famous Chariots of the Gods by Eric Van Doniken, Unsolved Mysteries of the Past. This is what launched the whole ancient alien thing. Okay, I could go on and on like this. Hundreds more. That's enough of that. So forgive me for responding to the umpteenth claim that the disclosure of alien contact is imminent with skepticism. My response now is an acerbic, shut up and show us. In other words, stop talking about how you know people who met people who said they talked to someone, who said they saw the alien bodies in spaceships, and just show us the damn aliens and ships. On this podcast alone, I've had a number of UFO authors. I've had Alan Stanfield, Contact. I've had Adam Frank's The Little Book of Aliens. Adam is an actual real scientist searching for extraterrestrial life somewhere. He's not a UFO believer. Garrett Graff's book, UFOs. Look at the size of this thing. The entire history of the UFO phenomenon. Most recently, I guess 2-3 weeks ago, Greg Agigian's book on the history of UFOs, and so on and so on. Oh, I also had Nick Pope on from the Ancient Alien series. He was the British UFO. He was on the British UFO program. Michael Schellenberger, who said that he had actually talked to people directly, who said they actually came into contact with UFOs through the government. Okay, so in other words, there's a lot of information about this. But what are the chances that the government is really keeping all this a secret? Here's what Garrett Graff told me when I asked him on the show his opinion about the claim that the government has extraterrestrials. Keep in mind that Garrett is a journalist who has spent a career writing about government security programs, the FBI, 9/11, Watergate, Raven Rock, that's the government's Cold War doomsday plans, and D-Day, his new book that just came out last month is on D-Day. Quote, the challenge for me with government conspiracies is they presuppose a level of competence that is not on display in the rest of the work the government does. I just don't believe that the government is capable of keeping a secret at scale like this for any meaningful period of time. For example, my next book is a history of D-Day, Operation Overlord, the biggest, most important secret that the U.S. government had. They had 6, 8, 10 complete breaches of secrecy in the 6 or 8 months before. One guy literally accidentally mailed a copy of the invasion plans to his mom in Chicago. One officer got drunk and accidentally started talking about the invasion at a cocktail party. Another officer left a briefcase behind on a bus that he ended up chasing after down the street trying to recover the invasion documents. That's one operation in one 6-month period. So to me, I just don't see the capability of the U.S. government to keep any meaningful secrets about this UFO program over a long period of time. And yet you have a conspiracy around UFOs that would employ thousands of people over decades, and not one has leaked anything or left a briefcase full of UFO secrets in an Uber or a taxi cab, or accidentally mailed documents to the wrong person, or written a tell-all memoir, or gone on 60 Minutes with firsthand knowledge. Close quote. To this, I would add the fact that of the millions of classified documents that WikiLeaks released, there's not one document or even a mention in any documents of UFOs, UAPs, aliens, spaceships, etc. Nothing. Nada. Zip. Zero. And by the way, there's also no mention in any of the WikiLeaks documents of 9/11 as an inside job by the Bush administration, or the fake moon landing, or the CIA's role in the assassination of JFK and RFK. Here, the absence of evidence is evidence of absence. And at this point, let me add my usual caveat that I'm not denying the possible existence of extraterrestrials somewhere in the universe. Here's my Twitter length or X length answer to Fermi's paradox that asks, where is everybody? ETs are probably out there in the cosmos, but there probably are not that many of them. And because of the vast interstellar distances and their extreme rarity, they have not been here. But keep searching, as such a discovery would be one of the greatest in human history. So, what are these UAPs we've all seen in the handful of grainy videos and blurry photographs? We've covered them in the pages of Skeptic in great detail, so I won't go through all that here. But it's pretty clear that these are ordinary terrestrial objects, like balloons, planes, and the like, with anomalous effects due to the cameras and the lenses and the tracking devices used by these military jets. But don't take my word for it. Here is Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, who reported seeing an unidentified aircraft about 70 miles west of San Diego in 2004. This is the USS Nimitz incident. She's been on all the shows. You've seen her. Her explanation of what she thinks she saw is emblematic of the entire phenomenon and reinforces my point. Here's her quote. Just because I'm saying that we saw this unusual thing in 2004, I am in no way implying that it was extraterrestrial or alien technology or anything like that. I think that the U.S. government's report is going to be a huge letdown. I don't think that it's going to reveal any fantastic new insight. Close quote. Indeed, it didn't. And here is UFOologist Leslie Kean. Her book, here's her book, UFOs. Okay. Generals, pilots, and government officials go on the record. Here is her claim in that book that 90 to 95% of all sightings are ordinary terrestrial phenomena, such as weather balloons, flares, sky lanterns, planes flying in formation, secret military aircraft, birds reflecting the sun, planes reflecting the sun, blimps, helicopters, the planets Venus or Mars, meteorites, meteors, space junk, satellites, swamp gas, spinning eddies, sundogs, ball lightning, ice crystals, reflected light off clouds, lights on the ground or lights reflected on a cockpit window, temperature inversions, hole punch clouds, and the list goes on. Close quote from her. So here's a simple Bayesian calculation of probabilities. 90 to 95% of all sightings are ordinary terrestrial phenomena. The rest are unexplained anomalies. That is, we just don't know what they are. That's what the U in UFO or UAP means, unidentified. Okay? So you see a new unexplained anomaly. What is it? Well, with 90 to 95% confidence, you can conclude it's ordinary terrestrial. As they say, if you hear hoofbeats, think horse, not zebra. In any case, it's always okay to just say, I don't know what I saw. But what about the Navy pilots whose credentials are stellar and paraded in every media story and podcast episode on UAPs? Well, here's the astronaut and pilot Scott Kelly, whose credentials are second to none. He's at a NASA press conference dealing with the latest flap of UAP sightings, addressing this very question about the alleged extraordinary perceptual powers of pilots and astronauts. Here he is. Quote, in my experience of flying over 15,000 hours in 30-something years in airplanes and space, the environment that we fly in is very conducive to optical illusions. So I get why these pilots would look at that Go Fast video and think it was going really fast. I remember one time I was flying off Virginia Beach Military Operating Area, and my RIO, Radar Intercept Officer, who sits in the back of the Tomcat, was convinced we flew by a UFO. I didn't see it, so we turned around to go look at it. It turns out it was a Bart Simpson balloon. Unbelievable. Continuing with the quote, my brother, Mark Kelly, a former NASA astronaut, who is also now a U.S. Senator, shared a story with me about an experience he had years ago that when he was the commander of STS-124, that's the space shuttle, they were getting ready to close the payload doors of the space shuttle, and they see something in the payload bay, and they thought it was a tool, maybe a bolt. They couldn't quite figure it out, and they were potentially going to have to go and do a spacewalk to retrieve it. But before they did, my brother grabbed the camera and they took a picture of it. And when they blew up the picture, they realized this was not a bolt or a tool in the payload bay. It was actually the International Space Station that was 80 miles away. Close quote. Okay. Look, all this credentialing stuff would not be necessary if we had, actual evidence, like an alien body or a spaceship. No one discusses the credentials of the pilots who filmed and shot down the Chinese spy balloon last year. Why? Because we all saw the balloon. Clear, high-resolution photographs and videos reported by all media every night that week as it floated across the United States. The Pentagon acknowledged its existence. as did the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, and even the President of the United States. End of story. They shot it down. We have the debris. That's it. That is what it would take for me or any scientist to believe that we've been visited by aliens. And if you go to my Substack Skeptic column of, well, I guess it's 2 years ago now, almost, you'll see that I posted a $1,000 challenge to anyone who can prove we've been visited by extraterrestrials by December 31st, 2024. Okay, a few months away. So far, no one has taken me up on the challenge. Gee, that's a shocker. And I'm willing to extend it to 2025 or 2026. I'm even speaking to the owner of SCA Promotions, who insures risks and offers big payoffs for highly unlikely events. You know, like holes in one in golf, that sort of thing. I once served as an analyst for SCA when they offered a huge cash payout for the discovery of Bigfoot. No one ever collected, although there was a guy who applied for the prize when he thought he saw Bigfoot in his backyard in Palm Springs. Turns out, if I recall, it was his dog. It was a dog, a neighbor dog. Anyway, so I'm thinking of offering a $1 million prize for proof of alien visitation. Will anybody take me up on the challenge? I doubt it. Why? Why is that? I think the answer comes from this observation by Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, who I quoted before. She was the one who witnessed the 2004 UAP incident from a USS Nimitz fighter jet, which I think also well sums up 75 years of ufologists' search for aliens. And I'll close with this quote from Alex Dietrich. I think they enjoy the anticipation more than actually finding answers. Close quote. That, I think, explains a lot. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. This has been Michael Shermer, part of the Michael Shermer Show podcast, solo episode. If you support the show, please subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcasts on. If you want to give us a little support, go to skeptic.com/donate. Podcast is part of the Skeptic Society, which is a 501c3 nonprofit science education and research organization, and we appreciate your support, and thanks for listening.